Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm making a scale model here. 1/32 inch equals a foot, and it's of a bridge that also doubles as a community center. I have some different parts of the bridge here that still have to be added, just some subcomponent kind of glue ups that are going to be tacked on. One guy over here on the left, this larger form, going on the right of it. It's a beast of a project. It included a large ADA ramp that would then span across the entire bridge with some different landings. And then I have to add a little bit more details. I have to beef up this mass right here and kind of detail out where some foliage is going to be. There's going to be some communal gardens and some other things going on. So, what I really wanted to make the video about was some different processes. So basically how I created these massing models. What I did was I used SketchUp. And then what I did is I used SLICER, which is a plugin for SketchUp, and SLICER basically can work almost like a 3D printer, but can slice up your model and whichever axes that you would like, whatever axis that you would like. And so I chose to do the x-axis on this model that I had done. And so it does a pretty good job. You can also choose to do like waffle patterns, so 2 axes with notches. And then what it does is it lays it flat for you after that, so you can kind of get a glimpse of all those pieces then. And there's typically errors, so there's a bunch of errors in here that you can kind of maybe get a sense of, just with like things cutting off abruptly. So what I had to do then was fix those errors, and I found from my experience that it's a lot easier to fix all the slicer errors in AutoCAD after it lays flat and you export it. Some other tips and tricks for you. One is you should get some blunt tip syringes and then fill those with glue that allows you to meter just the right amount of glue. So when you go and place that on, you can be very accurate with that. So that way you don't have a lot of squeeze out and a lot of mess. Then the other thing would be get yourself a nice pair of tweezers if you're working with some really small, intricate details. Like I was making this ramp here that then connects to the underside here, which is going to get glued on shortly. The other thing is binder clips work really great for clamps, so get all different kinds of sizes there. Your hands, especially when you're laser cutting, are going to get all kinds of filthy, and so getting some kind of like wipes would be great for that. Keep your hands clean so that way your model can be as clean as possible. And then also if you're working with chipboard like I am, it tends to want to swell up, and that's why you want to keep an eye on how it's drying. And so I'm clamping this thing straight, so that way as the glue dries and it then takes the right shape, it doesn't go too far in the wrong direction. And so that's part of the reason I'm doing some of these sub glue ups, is because once this thing gets a little bit too compounded in one direction and it's swelling up, it's going to really start to warp. So you just do it in fragments that you can then glue up. I also recommend using some kind of straight edge or something that gives you a nice square. So this is a machined piece of a material called Richlite, which is really dense. If you can get a piece of aluminum or steel, it's even better. Something that's heavy is really nice. And this was CNC'd nice and square. These were like some tie-down blocks for some milling and machining that I was able to get a hold of. And really from there, other things that I would recommend is just when you're putting together chipboard, tacky glue, or just Elmer's white glue works great because it soaks into the fibers of the material and allows you to get a really nice hold then. That way, I would advise against super glue when working with this chipboard, which is basically like a cardboard, right? Any kind of paper material, tacky glue or Elmer's glue works really great. And just to kind of finish off, here's a couple conceptual models, more at an 1/8 scale, just kind of showing kind of the idea by the community center, how the ramp and stairs kind of create these gathering spaces for outdoor pavilions and some other amenities that would exist within the structure. So that was done just with like trace paper, some sketches, and then what I did is I just kind of like SketchUp. I just took the trace, cut it up, and then started making the forms from there. And this is just a quick study model on some different concepts of behaviors that would exist within these geometries that are going on. So kind of a fun way and a loose way that you could then diagram out your intent by quickly popping it up. So not too bad. Now I also want to acknowledge that these massing models could have been done a lot faster and cheaper if I used just like a block of 2x4 or 2x6 and just milled that down, but I had some different cutouts and things that I didn't really want to deal with since I don't have any really of my tools down here. And the shop here, the wood shop, doesn't have a lot with it, so what I did was I just laser cut all the layers I would need to get to the heights at the scale that I needed for these masses on site, and they turned out nice, especially because these aren't all square, and I would have had to do a couple tilted bevel cuts on the saw to get what I wanted. All right, so I'll have a follow-up video kind of showing it all put together. I have a etched piece of white birch here, 1/2-inch white birch, face birched plywood that has the topography on it from CAD Mapper, which I did a video on a little bit earlier, and I took that topography and modified what I needed and then laser cut that as well for the site plan. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Don't forget to save and subscribe.